One thing I love about this time of year that I'm sure most of you would agree is the Christmas music. And we have it playing nonstop in our house and in this place. And in my car and in my office and in the house. And then so often I'll hear a song and I'll hear it and I'll think, wow, that's a great song. And it's like Crossings is doing it because you can't tell the difference between a recording out from somebody somewhere around the world, and yet the best that it's done is right here with our own orchestra and our own vocalists. And I know I tell you this a lot, and I don't mean it to ever grow trite and become something that is not filled with meaning, but you have no idea how blessed we are and how fortunate we are in this place. You just have no idea. I'd have to take you around to churches with me throughout the year, and there's some great churches, some wonderful people, and they're working really hard, but they just don't have so much of what we enjoy and take for granted. And I don't take it for granted, and I hope you'll join me in that as well. We thank God every day for whatever reason He has given us, the opportunity He's given us in this place called Crossings, and it's just humbling. Top of your note page, you'll find the words that we've been looking at all month. And I'm looking forward to Christmas Eve when we'll have, I think it's 10 opportunities to summarize this and to put the whipped cream and the cherry on the icing this week. It's going to be just fantastic, and I really am just so excited about it. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulders, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. And I've been trying to make a point to make sure you know that word, the government shall be upon his shoulders, is not referring to our government. It's not referring to an overthrow of a government. It's just simply saying, in a new way of leading, a new way for the world will be ushered in with Jesus. It transcends any government, but the new way of leading, a new approach to life on this earth, the government is on his shoulders. On our Savior Jesus Christ is a new way of life, a new way of living, a new approach to being people in this world that he has created. And his name is Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father. And today we look specifically at the Prince of Peace. It's interesting that the very next verse, we haven't gone there yet, but verse 7 in this text picks up this theme of peace again. It repeats it. For of the increase of his government and of peace, there'll be no end. So in other words, for the increase of his leadership, for the increase of his rule in our lives, there'll be no end. The increase of peace that comes from him, there will be no end. I want to talk to you today about peace that is lasting, not a peace that is temporary, not a peace that is dependent on a good day or is not there on a bad day. I'm talking about a peace that is everlasting, a peace that is permanent. He is the Prince of Peace. I'm going to ask you to take your response card out, if you would, and have that available to you. Some of you will use it, some of you may not. But if all of you would take it out of your worship folder, it's the bottom half of your connection card. And I think it might help if all of us have it out there, that for those who will use it, that'll make them more comfortable for some of you to use this, as I hope you will. This is a very key way for us to know how we can help you take the next step. And again, you can communicate with us. You can bring them to down here to the front after the service. You can put them in the blue boxes you'll find by every door. But they're important, a piece of communication for you of a spiritual nature. It's not signing up for a class. It's not making a reservation. It's about letting us know and helping you know what is next for you and Jesus. What's next for you and your walk with him? That's very important to me. Now, the reason I have the response card out is because I want you to think about 3 questions. And I'm sorry I didn't get them written down for you before it's printed. First question would be this: what is it that gives you peace? I think it's good for us to evaluate at times, what are we depending on for peace? That can be very revealing. It can kind of help us know what we're really depending on. What is it that you're depending on? What is it that gives you peace? It may be a place. It may be a certain setting. It can be a group of people. It can be a quiet moment of meditation with a Bible in your hand. What is it that gives you peace? There's a second question. What's going on in your life right now that's destroying peace in your life? What's going on right now that is, at least there's an attempt to wreck the peace in your life? Maybe you're flooded with guilt of the past. Maybe you're flooded with memories from the past that are regretful or even hurtful. Maybe there's you've heard the word this week from a doctor that there's cancer, or you've heard, perhaps you've had a loved one wrestling with a very difficult situation in their life. Perhaps you've had a spouse that walked out. Maybe you've had a kid take a detour. What is it that's sort of shaken your world right now? And what is it that's taking away your peace? And then I guess the last question I would ask, the third question I would ask is simply this. Do you know anybody who could use some peace? And is it possible that God may be tapping you on the shoulder as we talk about the Prince of Peace to go be a peacemaker? That 2 Corinthians talks about that he's reconciled us to himself, and he's given us this peace that we celebrate at Christmas time. Well, it goes on to say, but he's given us the ministry of reconciliation. I want you to understand the most important thing we do as a church, the most important thing, if we do nothing else, we must do this. It's all about Jesus Christ, choosing to follow him and look and see what that means and what it looks like in our life. We follow Jesus Christ. We put our life in his hands. We settle our life into his agenda. We follow him. That's the most important thing we do. And then the second, right behind it, is we help other people get there as well. If this is a great gift that we sing about, Oh Holy Night, if fall on our knees, if this is that kind of gift, then why are we taking any pause? Why are we taking our time? Why are we not giving it all we have to get this message of peace into the hands of people who don't have any peace right now? Or whose peace is totally up to the circumstances of the moment? And quite frankly, I think as a church, sometimes it's easy to forget those things are our priority. If we did nothing else, we must do those things. And if anything else we do detracts us from doing those things, we ought to stop doing those other things so we can do what is most important. Because it's all about Jesus. Not just at Christmas time. 12 months out of the year, 52 weeks out of the year. Every day, it's all about Jesus. My walk with him, and what am I doing to share this with everybody around me who doesn't have it? Those are the questions I'd ask you to consider. What's giving you peace? What is it that brings you peace? And is that a good thing? What's destroying peace for you right now? What's taking away that peace for you? And do you know somebody who could use some peace, deep peace? The Hebrew word for peace is shalom. You'll hear that word frequently in Jewish culture. It's a Hebrew word. A lot of times they would greet themselves with the word shalom. And when you say shalom to somebody, it's a powerful greeting. If we started doing that around crossings, we could really throw a lot of people off. But I would actually recommend it. They'd wonder, are we Jewish or what? But I love this. Our roots are from the Jewish tradition, the Hebrew tradition, so it's part of our roots. Shalom. Shalom just doesn't mean, hey, peace. No. If you grew up in the 60s and 70s, you know what that means. A lot of you in here get it. If I did that in a venue, they'd go, huh? You know. Peace, brother, you know. I don't know why I always think when I do that, peace, brother, you know. What is wrong with my mind? You just think of that, peace, brother, you know. Because I grew up, you know, in the bell-bottoms and the bandanas, and, you know. And not that I've ever done that. I mean, this word peace, it means so much more than what we think it does, because it's not just about momentary peace, or I hope you've got peace in this moment. It's not that at all. It's not the absence of conflict. Shalom, it means a very deep, deep, lasting wholeness. Peace comes from that wholeness, a contentment. And no matter what's going on in my life, no matter what's happening in my world, I can always say, in Christ, I can say shalom. Peace, the real deep peace that passes all understanding. It's hard to describe it. I think sometimes we settle for an idea that peace is only available if we have full understanding of what's going on in our life. In other words, when I'm not at peace, I'm trying to solve a problem. I'm a fixer. I've got the counseling bills to prove it. I want to fix things. And so when there's not peace in a situation, when there's peace lacking in a relationship or in a situation, I'm trying to fix it. Because if I can just understand what's going on, and I always think if we just have a conversation, everything's going to be just fine. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Or I think if we can just get control of this circumstance, whatever it is that's disrupted peace in my life, if I can just get my arms around it, understand it, explain it, then I'll feel peace again. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't take the effort to bring peace. I'm not saying we shouldn't try to be peaceful and be at peace. I believe all those things. But what I'm saying is, at the end of the day, true, lasting peace, true, real, genuine peace is not something I'll be able to create on my own. I can take a few steps that way. But there's times I think if I can just fully understand something, or if I can know the outcome, or if I can control the process, then I'll have peace. And we play that game of if only. Well, if only this would happen, then I can have peace. Or if only this person would be like this, then there would be peace. If only this person would change. If only I could get a better job. And the list goes on, the if onlys. If I can just understand it or control it, then I can assume I can create some peace in my life. If I can find all the answers to the issues in my life, then I think sometimes we assume, well, that's how I'm going to have peace. Thankfully, many of us in this room have lived long enough to know this is just not the case. No amount of control, no amount of knowledge, no amount of information, no amount of understanding, no amount of avoiding difficulty or conflict is going to deliver lasting peace. It's not going to happen. We don't know the future. We can't see the outcome of every situation. We don't understand the whys of what's going on at any given moment. On your note page is a simple statement we thought that might be helpful to you in this process, and it's simply this: peace comes from placing our faith in a person, not from knowledge or circumstances. It's very important. Real lasting peace, the kind we get from the Prince of Peace, this kind of peace, it comes from placing our faith in a person, not from knowledge or circumstances. And if we look at the Christmas story, I think we find some pretty significant examples of what I'm talking about here. For example, Joseph. We can refer to Joseph. The angel appears to him, informs him that the woman he's engaged to, they call it betrothed at that time, the woman in essence he's engaged to is pregnant. Now, if you read both the stories of Mary and the story of Joseph, when the angel appeared to Joseph and to Mary with that information, you'll find their reactions were very similar. Joseph, he responds very clearly, and he's thinking, well, this is tragic. In that day and age, a woman pregnant by someone not who she's engaged to, a woman pregnant and not married, but in this case, a woman pregnant and not married and not yet, the engagement process is still going on with Joseph. For her to be pregnant with a child that's not Joseph's could have been ultimate humiliation, for even cost her life. So how's Joseph respond? He responds by fixing the circumstances. He's wise, actually. I think he was thinking the right way, to be honest with you, except it wasn't going to fix it ultimately. He says, look, he decided to divorce her quietly. That's what it says. And the first thought would be, oh, man, divorce. That's off the table, isn't it? We can't talk about divorce, can we? Well, yeah, we can. Joseph was fully exercised as an option that was his in that moment. He was going to divorce her. That was fully his option. Perfectly allowable, perfectly legal, perfectly biblical. Except we see him saying, I'm going to divorce her quietly. I love her so much. I'm very hurt by this. I'm going to do this very quietly because I don't want everybody else to know. I don't want anybody else to know about this. So we see such deep love in that statement. We see his deep compassion for Mary in that statement. We kind of see his disappointment of how could this have happened. But he's going to take care of this quietly because he doesn't want to embarrass her and hurt her and humiliate her and cost her the love of others in the community or perhaps her own life. So he's going to deal with the circumstances. I'll fix this. I'll divorce her quietly. The angel appears to Mary. Tells Mary, you've been highly favored. You're going to have a child. You're going to give birth to a child, and it's not a human wish or not a human desire, not a human action, but of God. Mary, she responded needing information. I would have done the same. There's nothing wrong with this. She just simply said, how can this be? There's no way. I'm a virgin. How can this be? I'm a virgin. Give me information. I can't understand this. I don't get this. You're going to have to help explain this to me. What do you mean? How can this be? This is impossible. But yet Mary had peace. Yet Joseph had peace. And that great statement you've heard me already say this season, it's a year-round statement when Mary says to the angel, okay, may it be to me as you have said. That's peace. You don't make statements like that unless you are truly at peace. Say the world's going to think I'm crazy. There's going to be rumors. There's going to be whispers. There'll be people who will never believe this. This is going to cost me dearly. But may it be to me as you have said. I wonder how many times we had an opportunity for God to use us in a significant way. I won't even bother to rehearse to you the times I can even think of when I didn't say, may it be to me as you have said. When I said, no way. Think of the opportunities for really deep peace that could be ours if we, like Mary, would have peace and have the kind of peace that we would say, may it be to me as you have said. Habakkuk in the Old Testament, he didn't have all the answers. He was asking for the answers, but he did have peace. The prophet had asked the Lord for some deep and searching questions to be answered, and he got his answers. But they were not the answers he was looking for. They were almost more than he could bear. The glimpse into the future that had been given to him left him shocked and devastated. And in the end, he simply bowed to a wisdom much greater than his own. And he looked to God and he says this. This is a fantastic statement in the Old Testament. Look at this. Think of, could we really say this? This has been so convicting for me personally this week. Even though the fig trees have no blossoms and there are no grapes on the vines, and even though the olive crop fails and the fields lie empty and barren, and even though the flocks die in the fields and the cattle barns are empty, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will be joyful in the God of my salvation. The Lord is my strength. Isn't that incredible? Habakkuk didn't have all the details. In fact, the details in front of him were pretty bleak. Fig trees, no blossoms, no grapes. I mean, their very livelihood is threatened here. Their very survival is threatened here. Olive crop fails, fields empty and barren, flocks die in the fields, no cattle, the barns are empty. Yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I'll be joyful in the God of my salvation. The Lord is my strength. That's peace. That's shalom. That's real peace. And that comes from the Prince of Peace. Paul didn't have all the answers. The Apostle Paul, he didn't have all the answers, but he had peace. I think of that great statement he said, I've learned to be content regardless of the circumstances. I've learned to be at peace regardless of the circumstances. When he had been imprisoned for false accusations, for no reason at all, imprisoned and beaten, he says, I've learned to be content. He said, whether I'm in prison or whether I'm walking free, I've learned to be content. I'm at peace. He said, whether I'm well-fed or hungry, whether I'm well-financed or broke, he said, I've learned to be content. I have deep peace. Peace that's so much deeper than my circumstances. Peace that goes way further down the road for me than just this particular moment. Jesus, in John 16, says he spoke to us about many, many things. But then he says this. He goes, look, I've told you all these things. I've told you all these things so that you may have peace in me. Because here in this earth, you'll have many trials and sorrows. That's one of my least favorite verses in the Bible. Really? And yet it's one of my favorite verses in the Bible. Because I think we need to remember that. Quite honestly, we don't like that piece of information. And somewhere somebody sold you this bill of goods of Christianity that wants to just eliminate all your problems. That's not real Christianity. Jesus said, I've told you all this so that in me, see, a person, not circumstances, in me, he says. We know this because in him we have peace, because here on this earth we will have many trials and sorrows. And we do. I've had them in the past. I got a few going on now, and there'll be more later. There's no need to be depressed or defeated by that, because the great news is I can be at peace because I will never face any of those things alone. And neither will you. Because he says, I've overcome this world. He goes, you take heart. I've overcome all this. I've got this. That's peace. See, peace comes from placing our faith in a person. It does not come from having a certain amount of knowledge or an understanding of the circumstances. I've said many times that I'm not much of a pastor when I have to visit a children's hospital. I just cave. I'm going to cave just talking about it. Soft, soft place in my heart for kids. And when a kid is sick, God, it's hard. I remember times I'd go down to Children's Hospital and visit people back in the day when I was the only guy from the church doing any of the visiting. And in some ways I miss those days. Those were good days. I still get to visit a lot, but not as much as I used to. But I remember going into Children's Hospital, sometimes those sweet parents of a very sick child had to spend all their time consoling me because I was such a mess. And I was there to console and pray for them, you know. And they kind of had that look when I leave the hospital of, you may not want to come back. We got this, Marty. We have a story unfolding in our church about a sweet little child. It's been going on a while. And yet, the more we kept hearing about this family, we know them well. They're very active down in our venue service, very active in our school. Just watching how they were handling this I would step back and I would be so amazed. I would be touched. I was encouraged. I was so impressed. I was so impacted by the way they were handling this. So we captured this story on video, and I want to take you to their living room and let you hear their story of what's going on in their life. And then we'll talk about, and we'll wrap it up, and we'll talk about peace. Have a look at the screens.
My name is Brooke Mayfield. This is my beautiful wife, Wendy Mayfield.
We have 3 children. Our son, Brennan, is 18 and plays in the worship band in the venue. And then our daughter, Delaney, is 15 and goes to school here at Crossing. She's a freshman. And then we have Parker, who is 2. Parker is just pure joy. Everybody that meets her falls in love instantly. She has the personality as big as the sky. I mean, she's just amazing. We took Parker to her 2-year checkup, and he luckily did a very thorough evaluation of her 2-year checkup and was feeling around on her abdomen and felt a mass. We waited a couple of days to see if maybe it was possibly something else. Got the phone call that Dr. Leverage needed to talk to me. He told me that it was cancer, and I screamed like I've never screamed, and I fell to my knees.
Just the tone of his voice, I knew right away when he just said, Brooke, I need to speak to you. It was just overwhelming to say my 2-year-old has cancer is it's tough to say.
After they realized that it was cancer, we had some scans that were scheduled. They were very difficult. At one point in one of the scans, we had to hold our baby down for about 45 minutes while she screamed and cried. That was a time when it was very scary. It just kind of hit you in the gut what she might be dealing with for many years. And on those scans, there were some areas that would light up that show you where the cancer is located in her body. And it was definitely very evident there were 5 different locations in her body that were showing cancer. We had some other scans done. And again, this is just another big moment where God was like, it's gonna be all right. You know, I've got this, I've got you, I've got her. The scans this time came back, no bone involvement. So she went from having a diagnosis of stage 4 cancer, which would have been 2 to 5 years. It would have meant stem cell. It would have meant radiation. It would have meant endless chemo. So we got to go from stage 4 to stage 3, moderate risk. No radiation, no stem cell transplant. Chemo would not be near as aggressive. That was major for our baby and for us to know that, okay, it's not gonna be as hard on her body, it's not gonna be as long of a journey and hard of a journey for her and, you know, all of us. Parker's tumor is located in a very dangerous area in her abdomen. It's around the aorta. Surgeons here, the head of surgery even at Children's is not comfortable trying to remove even part of the tumor at this point. And this is God again saying, I got it. We've been led to a doctor in New York at Sloan Kettering. His gift is tumor removal. He's been reviewing all of Parker's case, her scans, her biopsies, everything, and then her case goes in front of the tumor board. And we've been told he doesn't call you up there if he doesn't think that he can do the surgery. God brought him to us.
There were so many things that lined up so quickly that we had absolutely no control over, no involvement. It was God showing us that I'm going to provide for you. I'm taking care of you. I've got you surrounded. I've got your baby surrounded. This is the most peaceful I've been in my entire life, which is absolutely the weirdest thing to say or to hear. And so I think it's obvious to me that there's no other way that in a time like this I could say I'm the most peaceful I've ever been in my whole life if it weren't for God. During those storms, it was all of those people that showed up and that God was able to work through to provide us some clarity and some peace and some just quietness and calmness. We're living through it and we are leaning on Him tremendously. And I can't even explain how that happens.
Something that I've really tried to focus on is knowing that God says to be still and know that I'm God, and that gives me peace in the moments that are difficult.
And we want to keep praying for Parker. Tomorrow, the good news, there's some good news. Tomorrow, they'll fly to New York, and this surgeon, I guess the only one in the country, says he can do the surgery, and that's going to probably happen next week or the week after next. So be praying for Brooke and Wendy and Parker and the 2 kids, Delaney and Brennan. They're going to head to New York, and we believe we're going to continue to pray that God will bring a miracle to us. But no matter what happens, we have peace. When Brooke looked into that camera and said, "This is the most peaceful I've been in my entire life," I about fell out of my chair. Because this isn't something he would just tritely say. He wasn't trying to be spiritual in that moment. He wasn't trying to make an impression. He goes, "This is the moment. I've never been more at peace in my life than I am right now." You see, here's what we know, and some of you know this all too well. We've learned that when we are in the most difficult and dark moments, when we're in a situation we don't understand and we can't control, then and only then do we have an opportunity to know what is truly important. It's funny how things come along in our life, these trials and sorrows that Jesus says we're going to have. Isn't it interesting that they come along and suddenly all the stuff that we get so worked up about and even angry about and all worried about, all that stuff just sort of seems to fade away real fast because we find out it wasn't important to begin with. Suddenly we're focused on what really matters. Suddenly we're focused on what's really important in God's eyes, and that's where peace is found. Let me give you a glimpse into my life and my thinking a little bit when you come across stories like this one. And we didn't invent that story. We just wanted you to hear a story we had heard. I wanted to share that with you. Because you see, we get to walk alongside people. A lot of us here at the church, certainly many of you, we get to walk alongside people who are in any given moment very joyful, experiencing some incredible things in their life, but equally as well with people that are going through a great deal of pain. And I'm continuing to learn that when you stay in tune with the real needs of people, particularly those people who might be on your list right now who do not have the peace of Christ, that's where we find out what's really important in our life, what's really important in our church. Because we get so worked up over so many things, folks, that are not important, that don't matter. He's the Prince of Peace. That matters. He is our only source of peace. That matters. He's the only peace this world will ever know. That matters. And we've been told to be reconcilers and take this peace into the world. That matters. I'll argue with you all day long on those kinds of things. But I'm not interested in the petty arguments that just don't matter. Because real peace is found not in circumstances or knowledge. It's found in a person, and his name is Jesus. And if we don't get serious about that as a church, why are we even a church? This is what matters. He is the Prince of Peace. He is the source, the only source of our peace. He's the only source of peace in this world. If you're in the midst of a season in your life that's anything but peaceful, I hope you'll be encouraged. Because peace is possible. Trust him. Turn to him. Write on that response card the very thing that is causing you distress or conflict. And ask yourself, can he handle it? Ask yourself, is this worth the conflict it's causing me? Put it in his hands. Don't try to figure it out. Don't try to understand it. Just put it in his hands. Put it into the hands of the one who is the Prince of Peace and who's the only one who gives us shalom, lasting, deep wholeness and peace. Put it in his hands. And if you know someone who's not at peace, write their name down. Pray that God would send you to give them some shalom, some peace.